And we are live. Welcome to this episode of Thursday to Thrive. Today's going to be fire. We're going to be talking about the basics of living trust. I get this question all the time. What is the difference between a will and a trust? And a lot of people, there's a lot of misconceptions about that. A will is kind of like your wishes. A trust is something that you have to put together. Takes a little bit of elbow grease, but I promise you, if you invest the time to take care of that paperwork, then your estate will be and your heirs will be in a much better place going forward. Well, my name is Leah Garcia, financial strategist and insurance professional, and it's really my mission, my crusade, to help you properly protect, distribute, and transfer your wealth so you can build that legacy, because your wealth today should be your dynasty tomorrow. And the only way we're going to have a true dynasty, if we truly do put together our living trust. I use the term living trust, but really what we're talking about is estate planning. Sometimes if you use the word estate planning, people get intimidated. They think that it's only for the rich and wealthy, but really it's a comprehensive program that is going to address all of the living trust. It's going to also include your power of attorney and other supporting documents so that you really have an estate plan that is very unlikely to be contested or to go through litigation. Because how terrible would it be to put all this together, invest all this time and money, and then still have your assets go into litigation? So we really want to make sure that we're transferring our wealth with wisdom and with ease. So with that being said, we're going to talk about living trust. If you have any questions, put in the comments. We would love to answer your questions for you. And with that being said, remember that we are not attorneys, so this is not tax or legal advice. We're here to give you an overview of what an estate plan is. What is this living trust? And we are actually certified. See this little certification here? I'm super proud of this. We are estate plan strategists, and we have our certification from Inherit Guard. And you see Inherit Guard listed right up there. They're a tremendous estate planning organization. They do all of the comprehensive basic plans all the way up to advanced tax planning, special needs trust. We have access to a network of about 100 different attorneys that we can get help you to match up with. And what we do, our role is to help you get prepared and organized so that when you meet with the attorney, it saves you time, saves you money. We hand carry you through the entire process and beyond, providing you that white glove service. So that's Inherit Guard. That's who we are. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Miss Sharon.
So we build strong relationships together because we care about you and your family. It's for us, it's not, we're in the business of helping people. And yes, we do get paid for our services, but that is not the driving force, the sole driving force behind what we do. We truly put the energy into making sure that you have the right plan for you and your family. And we even go ahead at some points throughout after you set up your plan. We will even circle back with you to make sure that your plan is still fitting your needs, over in a certain period of time, because our lives change and our lives evolve. So the plan we put together today may not be the plan you need in 5 years. And just because you have an estate plan, we're not saying you're God forbid, going to die tomorrow. But what we are saying is better to be prepared, because none of us really know when our time is up. So if you've put a plan together with us today, we're going to circle back with you maybe yearly, maybe every 2 years, whatever. Or if you feel you need something changes in your life, you can contact us so that we can edit your plan to best meet your needs and the needs of your family. And we really do care. And that's why working with us is going to be better than trying to do this on your own. And I know we're going to get into that later in the presentation, but everything we do comes with care. There's not a member of this team that doesn't care. And that's why we're going to make sure that your plan is going to protect you and your precious family. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Tim. You there, Tim?
I was on mute. One of the ways that we're able to help care for you and your family and help you with the living trust, as Lee was saying, we're not lawyers, but Inherit Guard is chock full of them, and it's always good to know a guy, and that's what we're here for. We know a guy. Inherit Guard's been in business for 12 years. They've done 2,000 plans a year and over 100 attorneys in every state, which is amazing. So wherever you are, we have an attorney that we can connect with and we can get you all set up for. And in the entire 12 years they've been in business, they haven't been, none of their plans have been litigated or contested, which is, you'll find out later on when we talk about probate, is just an amazing thing. And we've got 5-star ratings from both the clients and the financial professionals that work with us. It's just, we just know the right people, and we can help you through this whole process. And Leah can tell you more about that.
And I do love having a guy or a girl, right? We all need to have that resource. And Inherit Guard has definitely been that resource for me. I've been in this industry now just about 20 years. I have partnered with many different law firms and attorneys. Inherit Guard by far is head and shoulders above. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So you may not have heard of Inherit Guard, but it's because they don't really market to individuals. They actually market to people like us, insurance agents, financial professionals. And we provide, what we do is we provide you that service, and we can connect you to the right attorney that we believe is going to be the most suited, not just from the tactical standpoint, but also personality wise. Attorneys are attorneys. And what we do is we kind of help to soften those edges, and having that ability where we can match you up with that attorney. And if you decide that that's not the right match, then we can go ahead and set you up with another attorney so that you feel comfortable, because you're going to be talking about your money. You're going to be talking about your wealth. You're going to be talking about a lot of very sensitive topics. You want to feel comfortable with that attorney so that you can share everything that you need to share with them. So I'm going to hand it off to Miss Sharon. Unmute.
Sorry about that. So I was saying something genius, and I'll just repeat myself so you can hear my genius. Anyhow, there are many reasons why you need an estate plan. And here's the thing. We're going to dive deeper into what those reasons are. But before we get there, I want to say this. There's not very many people that like talking about this. And what human nature is, since it's an uncomfortable subject, because you're talking about when you're no longer going to be here on earth, people avoid having these conversations, which makes them avoid having an estate plan. But there's so many reasons why you need an estate plan that it's going to be worth the uncomfortable nature of the conversation. And it's better to have the conversations before you need it, because once you need this kind of conversation, you're not going to be able to be here to have the conversation. And everything is just left up to, a system, which we'll get into further. I'm going to pass it over to Tim now, and he can start explaining why you need an estate plan.
And I'm just glad I'm not the only one that doesn't unmute. One of the things is that estate planning it's not everything. It's one piece of the puzzle, and it's one part of just having a full comprehensive financial plan for everything. And that's what we're here to help everyone with. It's just one part, and we're here to help and provide white glove service from beginning to end and beyond, because we can. And like Leah, the dynasty builder, always says, there are more to it, and I'm going to pass it on to her.
Yeah, absolutely. And great point, Sharon and Tim. This is actually really my most favorite thing to do with my clients. I got to tell you, I love talking about their estate plan. I love talking about their living trust. And I think that, to your point, Sharon, if you wait until you need it, what will happen is your choices will be limited. People think that if they're at their deathbed that they can go ahead and write things down and kind of scribble it down and have a holographic will, but that has a very highly likelihood of being contested and going through litigation. So what we do is we help you build that wealth and help you to protect that estate. Otherwise, a large portion of what you have accumulated will be lost, and it will create a nightmare for your family. Folks, this is where we see relationships break down. This is where we see the heartache and the bickering. This is where all the things come out. Because when someone passes away, I can tell you firsthand, it is a very taxing and emotional time. And all of the feelings come out, good, bad, or indifferent. And so maybe something that isn't that valuable, that doesn't have a huge dollar attached to it, suddenly becomes so important to people because they're in grief. And so it really causes a lot of heartache if you don't have your plan in place and your rationale, right? It's really living a love story to your family if it's done properly and you do it in advance. So absolutely great points by both of you. Go ahead, Sharon.
So to your point, Leah, before I say the next point, I just want to say that I have seen my own family when my beloved grandmother, who I was close with, she passed away when I was 9. I was heartbroken. I saw people, adults, fighting over dishes, pots that were like, no offense to my grandmother who loved to cook, but they were used. And I, at 8 and 9 years old, found a chapstick on her like whatever, cadenza, whatever she used to call it, her dresser. I wanted that chapstick. And I remember that it was wintergreen. I hate wintergreen. Sorry, it's just not a flavor I can deal with. But I wanted it so bad. And one of her sisters, she was one of 8, lied and said, "Oh, no, that was my chapstick," and took it out of my hand. I was devastated. Now, the reason I bring up this story is because this is what grief will do. People will fight over very used pots. People will say a chapstick is theirs. It was a huge chapstick, by the way. It was used. I didn't want to use it. I just wanted it because it had touched my grandmother's lips. But anyhow, that's the point of me bringing that story into it. It's a very personal story, but it's very relevant. And I just want to say that, to Leah's point, grief does a lot of weird things to a lot of people. And then you add the money factor in and what's being left to people. Oh my goodness. Anyhow, so to go further, 10%, and that's a lot of money depending on what you're being, what has to be distributed. 10% is how much of your estate could be eaten up by probate costs. And I know that it says 10% could be eaten up, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it could wind up being more, because I've seen examples of where probate can go on for 2-3 years. And believe me, in that time, it's more than 10%. I'm not a mathematician, but I know numbers and I know finances, and it's more than 10% that's going to get eaten up. So that's a guesstimate. And to be honest, 10% of your family's legacy should not be going to probate costs. It should be going to the family. And the only way to make sure that happens is to be willing to have the tough conversations. Because once you have the tough conversation, the first time you have it is the toughest. Then every time you have to revisit it, it twinges, it hurts. You don't want to go there, but it's not as bad as the first time. But it's much better to do it this way than it is to have your decision making and your family's decision making taken out of it, because once it goes to probate, you don't have much of a say. We'll get into that in more detail later, but I'm going to pass it on to Tim so he can tell you some more.
Yeah, and along with that was a really, really, really good story, Sharon. Like, that was very moving. And it just goes to show that there's a lot of people that aren't prepared for what's coming. And even though, like, the survey Inherit Guard did that shows that 52% of Americans who are over 55 think that passing away without an estate plan would be irresponsible. That doesn't mean that those all have them. And if you don't have one, if you're over 55, if you're under 55, either way, we can help get you ready and have that just taken care of. You won't even have to worry about it. And you'll be in the part of the society that has that taken care of. And Leah can talk more about the number of people that don't actually even talk to people.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story, Sharon. It's very, very touching. And it just goes to show that this is the time when people get really emotional and all of those feelings come out, right? They definitely do. And Tim, great point about a lot of people believe that they should have one, that it's irresponsible not to own a current and properly funded living trust. However, a very minimal amount of people actually do own them. And you might say this is for the elderly. This is if you're closer to the sunset. But hey, we never know what place we are in the line. We just don't know. And here's the thing. If it's unpredictable, doesn't it make sense to put some bumper rails on it, especially if we have assets to protect? And I'm going to say your most precious asset is your children, if you have minor children. 67% of Americans who have an estate, 67% of Americans have no estate planning in place. They don't have anything in place. Whether it's a will, a trust, a holographic will, or something. Most people don't have anything in place. And what does that mean? That means that their estate, including your precious children, are subject to the laws and regulations by a court, a judge who doesn't know you. They don't know your family. They don't know what is important to you. Doesn't make sense to leave all of that to somebody who doesn't even know what's important to you. Go ahead, Sharon.
So to that point, I want to say this too. You don't want to leave things to the unknown, because if you do have precious children and something happens to you, you don't want them to wind up in foster care. And that is what will happen if you don't designate somebody and get somebody to agree that they want to be designated as the person. So your children are going to not only be going through the grief of losing you, their precious parents, they're going to be going to strangers. And honestly, if you don't pick a family member that they know and they have a relationship with, then they could wind up going, even after they leave foster care, they could wind up going to a family member that's just as strange to them as somebody in foster care. And that's a lot to add on to just the grief and the life-changing event of losing, your parents. 64% of Americans will never discuss their estate plan with their advisor. People have a financial advisor, but they'll never talk about what happens after they are no longer here, or, after they pass away, die, whatever word you're trying to avoid, but it's the truth. And here's the thing. I have one more thing that I want to add because it's really important. For those of you that don't have children, because there are people in this world that don't have children for whatever the reason, but did you know that you can decide in your estate plan, if you have it, to leave your money to charity? But if you don't say that, your money is just going to go wherever the court feels that your money should go. So after they eat up at least that 10% of your estate plan with all the court costs and fees and everything else, then they're going to decide what to do with your estate plan. So if you don't have a lot of people to leave your legacy to that are related to you, you can decide where your legacy gets left. If you're a cancer, if your family's been touched by cancer and you want to leave it to cancer, any one of the gazillion organizations out there would be so thrilled to get a gift like that, because they could do so much. And just think of the dynasty and the legacy you would be leaving, because you would have earmarked where your money is going. So I just wanted to make sure. So that's another reason why it's important to lessen that 64% number down to 0. And everybody should be having this conversation.
And
go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, that as Sharon was saying, 64% of Americans haven't even discussed this with their financial planners, and that's over 219 million people. And part of that is because there are some tough questions that have to be asked, and one of the things we're here for is to help figure those questions out, get them answered, get them in writing, get you connected with a lawyer, and have those taken care of. So there's no question when they come up, because you won't be there to answer them, unfortunately. And one of those questions is, have you or your spouse discussed what would happen if one of you were suddenly unable to make decisions, or if you passed away? Because it will happen. It's a very, very unfortunate but inevitable thing. And it's not something you're not going to be able to you're either not going to be able to answer that question yourself, or you're going to want to know what the other person had to say. And one of those is, if something happened to you, who would you trust to raise your children or make decisions on your behalf? Like Sharon was saying, there's a lot of places your kids could end up after you pass, and you want to make sure they end up in the right place. It's just something you can take care of ahead of time. And what plans do you have for your home or property if you were to become ill or pass away? And this just leads into the probate question. Your property and stuff can end up in probate for years, and it's public. Everyone's going to know everything you had, and it's all your laundry out there, and it's just I'd prefer to avoid that. And Leah can talk more on that too.
Yeah, for sure. And if you don't have a plan in place, all of your nosy neighbors and friends are going to see all of your debts and all of your assets. We definitely don't want that to happen. And I want to just welcome a few people who've joined us. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. You can send us a chat. Lisa Vivek, our menopause mentor, great to see you. And of course, the godfather of LinkedIn. No, sleep is for the weak. I do not sleep. I say, I'll rest when I'm gone, right? Miss Tracy, great to see you. Thank you for joining us. And if you have an upcoming event, go ahead and put it in the comments. So let's see, what do you want to consider? Have you considered what would happen to your business if you were suddenly unable to manage this? If you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, business owner, and you are 1099, have you put those plans in place so that your business can continue to operate if you're no longer here? And maybe that business has to be dissolved, but you still need somebody who can pay the bills, somebody who can write checks and keep the lights on, maybe pay employees. Now, here's the thing. Hear me when I say this. Don't make the mistake of simply thinking you can just add someone on as a signer on your bank account, okay? You're opening up yourself to whatever happens to them liability-wise, if they should get into a legal situation or anything like that. So be very, very careful of how you set this up. The bottom line is there's no way to really circumvent it. Either you have an estate plan or you don't. That's all there is to it. If you have a will in place or a trust, it gives you, that ends up with a date. It ends up with your current wishes, right? What are your current wishes? And just like Sharon was sharing, you want to be able to update this on a regular basis. Annually, most of my clients, I'm going to see them or at least touch base once a year. How's everything going? And by the way, that doesn't cost you anything. If you review your estate plan with an attorney, they're going to say, okay, let me get that check first before we have the conversation. This is part of that white glove service that we provide to you. And do you have a plan in place for long-term care or assisted living if that becomes necessary? This is the biggest blind spot, booby trap, pitfall that most people don't plan for. They don't want to talk about it. They think they don't need it. They think planning for long-term care means going to a nursing home. I really think of this as a stay out of a nursing home. We never know. It's not when we get older. My 19-year-old nephew was in a truck versus motorcycle accident, and he was in a coma for 4 months. Now, his mom had a fortunate ability to be able to take time off of work to be able to care for him. She was in the hospital every day by his side for 4 months. How many of us can really be able to do that? Do we have the flexibility with our job? Do we have the time off? So these are critical, hard discussions, but very, very critical. And have you thought about what you would like your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be honored? And this is why I enjoy doing estate planning, is because I like to talk to them, my clients, about how do you want to be honored? What are the things that you want to leave? What's the messages that you want to leave? Do you want to leave your story? Do you want us to help you make a video? Maybe you want to write it down. Maybe there's some words of wisdom if your children are younger, if you should pass away when your children are younger, or maybe for your grown children. I lost my mom at a young age. And I would wish to know what her thoughts are as I'm getting older. And if you put that plan in place, you can actually leave those words of wisdom, and not just for your children, but how about your grandchildren? How about your unborn precious grandchildren? It is one thing to hear a story secondhand, but it's quite another for them to hear your legacy firsthand from your own words. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sharon.
Sorry, the unmute wouldn't let me unmute, but I'm here now. And so next we're going to talk about here's what happens without a proper plan. And yes, we've touched on some of this, but now we're going to outline it even deep. We're going to take a deeper dive because, again, we're not saying any of this to like put a damper on your day and make you depressed or feel bad. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to say that it's easier to have these conversations, and it's more effective to have these conversations before you need them, because even if you're lucky in the sense that you get some knowledge, you get some awareness that your time is running out to be here on earth, you're not going to have the time that you need to really do all this in a cohesive way. It's going to be hurry up and rush. And nobody wants to do that. But people, I've seen it happen with people where they get the gift of knowing that their time is coming to an end on earth, and they're trying to tie up all the ends that they didn't do before, and it's not done for them with as much peace as will be done when you're doing it, before you need to, because it's a very difficult subject to talk about. It's one of the most, I will say it, I will use my word, it's yucky. I hate talking about death. I know it's part of life. It's not something I enjoy. However, I don't enjoy doing things in a hurry up way. I would rather know that a plan is in place and that the plan can be altered annually or biannually, whatever, myself and my planner are comfortable with, because that way, as I evolve and as my life evolves, I know the plan's evolving, and hopefully me and this plan get to evolve into my 90s or 100s. But in the event that that's not where my story is going, since I don't know that, I would rather know that I've done what I can to preserve my family from having to go through some of the things that honestly I've witnessed in my own family, in my friends' families, and with clients. I mean, I've seen it, and we've all probably seen it, different variants of it in from all these environments. So, we're about to tell you more about what can happen when you don't have a proper plan. It's not to scare you, it's to empower you into taking action now as opposed to later. And with that, I will pass it to Tim.
And that's a great lead into my favorite slide, this whole thing, which is sort of how you were saying, Sharon. You can't write how you end, but having a living trust allows you to sort of write your epilogue, and you might end up like Humpty Dumpty, just sitting on a wall, and everyone's going to go, why don't you have an estate plan? Why don't you have a will? And with these, you can write the epilogue afterwards. You can tell people, this is what I want. This is what I want. This is how I want it to be after I'm gone. You can write your own outro, basically. Or you can end up with everyone just standing around not knowing what to do with all your stuff, like they're doing around poor Humpty Dumpty here. And for more on the estate planning, Leah can lead into that.
Yeah, great points. And I want to address this question here by the Godfather. And I believe he's asking, can we just do a will or a trust online by buying a kit online? And, does that work? And I will tell you that many people have done that. I've seen it. Unfortunately, a very high percentage of those will end up in probate court, or they will end up in litigation. A couple of reasons. One is because it's not current. They may have done it years ago. Remember that the language gets outdated, so you have to keep things updated with the current laws and regulations. Secondly, is it's never properly funded. I always ask people, not do you have a living trust, but do you own a current and properly funded living trust? And then thirdly is that when people say they're going to do it themselves, I meet so many people that bought the kit and never did it. Okay, it's a daunting process. There's a whole step to this. It's not just kind of a fill in the blanks and you set it and forget it. It really is not. So great question, Godfather. Thank you so much. And if you have any other questions, listen, if you don't have children, that's even more so why you need an estate plan. Who are you going to leave your assets to? I mean, worst case, if you pass away without an estate plan and you have children, your assets will be liquidated in a fire sale, and they'll divide it up amongst your heirs, amongst your children first. But if you don't have that, who are you going to leave your assets to? So there's three basic situations. If you have an estate plan, you pass away without any legal documents, it can go into testate. That's what we call it. You're in testate, which means you're going to court. Okay, you're going in front of a judge. Well, not you, but your heirs will go in front of the judge. They're going to look at everything. Everything's going to be cataloged and accounted for. All the debts, all the creditors, all the debtors, people who have some kind of a claim to your estate, and all your assets, all your stocks, all your 401ks, your house, everything will be accounted for and it will be liquidated. You pass away with just a will. Well, a will is your wishes. This is the wishes that I would like to have. They unfortunately must be validated by a court, which means, yes, probate. They're going to go through that probate process. Or you have a trust to manage your estate. Folks, I go to here in Monterey, they have probate court on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. I peruse over there every so often because it reminds me that there are people behind these stories. And you cannot even believe what happens. We're talking about wealthy people with lots of assets forego a living trust for a myriad of reasons. The bottom line is, if you don't have an estate plan, remember the court will have an estate plan for you. And it's almost 79% of Americans that do not have any form of estate plan in place. And I completely agree with that number. I've seen it in the beginning of my career, most people had something, whether it was legalized, whether it was formalized, they had something written down. But today, the majority of people have nothing. And I think that is a tragic. We're in an information age, but it seems we have so little information. So if you don't have a plan, guess what? The courts have a plan for you. Go ahead, Sharon.
So I think that just to go on what you were saying, I think that even though we're in an information age, one thing I've learned from knowing the generations, knowing my grandparents and knowing other people that I've met who are from that generation, and even my parents, right? They were aware of what was going to happen, and not that we're not aware, but it's almost like when we came into this information age, we also somehow developed this theory that we could just forget about it. Like if we don't think about it, if we don't deal with it, then it's not going to happen. I that's just an observation that I've made. And the generations before us were very much aware of what could and might happen, and they wanted to plan for it. And I'm not saying that we don't want to plan for it. I know that my friends want to plan for it. I've planned for it, and I'm still planning for it, but it's not a comfortable thing. And so because we have this information age, we're under the illusion that we can just forget about it until we absolutely have to deal with it, because when we absolutely have to deal with it, we'll be able to magically put it together in 5 seconds or 5 minutes. And that's not the way it works. So I think that's part of it. And there's a lot of illusions around probate. And that's another reason why I think people don't really plan ahead. It's not just that the conversation is uncomfortable. It's that people don't understand what probate really means. So people think, my observation of what people think about probate is, okay, so when I die, I have my will and everybody's going to follow my will. But what they don't realize is that there might be somebody that's going to contest that will. There might be some long lost relative that feels they have a right to your whatever, and they're going to contest it, and it's going to wind up in probate. And then people don't realize what can bring your estate to probate, and they don't realize what truly happens when something goes to probate. Because if people really understood what probate really means, more people, I believe, would be willing to have this conversation. So one of the illusions around probate is that assets titled in just your name go through probate, and that's not true. And I'm going to give it to Tim so he can, start to explain a little bit more.
Yeah, one of the things that probate definitely does is it will take your money. Like, as we were saying earlier, 10%, around 10% is going to end up in probate and just get eaten up, and not go to where you want it to go. It's not going to go where you've written it to go in your epilogue. And it is a big business. I mean, $1.5 billion to attorneys alone, and then millions to there's bonding companies, there's appraisers, there's the probate courts. You're going to need some of the movers to come in and haul everything out. And if you're going to end up with stuff in probate for years and years, there are going to be storage fees are going to start eating into that. It's the costs that are avoidable are massive, and there's plenty of people willing to take the money, like, because there's ways to Leah can go into more details on how you can avoid these.
Good work. Hey, we all get tongue-tied every now and then, so no big deal. Good work on that. Your default estate plan is probate. If you don't have a current and properly funded living trust, then the default is to go to probate. Again, we talked about this a little bit. All of your assets will be accounted for and they will be liquidated. generally they're not going to take a lot of time. The court will not have the patience to allow you to kind of negotiate with some of the heirs and say, well, do you want this and do you want that? No, they're gonna sell it. We've all seen estate sales. Well, that's what they're doing. They're accounting for everything. They're liquidating everything. Now we have the dollars and cents, and then that will be divided amongst whatever heirs the court feel is relevant. It's slow. It's public. It is arduous. It is painful. People have to spend time going back and forth to courts. People fight, they bicker, and they think the house was worth more than it was actually sold for. It really does end in a disaster. And that's really not what you want. And I would say this. Let me say this also. Oftentimes people come to me and they have a living trust. Remember, we're really talking about a full estate plan. And I hate to use that term only because people think, well, I'm not wealthy. No, it's still protecting your assets. And it's a very simple way that you can determine if you have a comprehensive living trust or an estate plan. Look at how many pages it is. If your living trust is about 20 to 30 pages, it's probably just a living trust. It doesn't have all the supporting documents. And those type of trusts are highly probability of being contested. You want to have all the supporting documents. The average trust is about 160 to about 250 pages. And if you have a special needs trust, a dynasty trust, second generation trust, it can be quite a few pages. So that's a really easy way for you to determine what kind of an estate plan, or if you really have an estate plan in place.
And something to really remember is that probate takes time. It can take 6 months. It could take 2 years. I've seen it go as far as 3 years, believe it or not. And with probate taking all that time, more of your estate gets eaten up. That's why I said, when I read the slide that said 10% of your estate will go to probate, I believe, from what I've witnessed and what I've observed and what I've learned, is that that's if it all goes smoothly. If the probate process doesn't go smoothly for probate, it's going to be much more than 10%, because 3 years of court costs and attorney costs alone, based on the what Tim said about the 1.5 billion going to attorneys and the other fees going to everybody else, that's a lot of time and a lot of money. And so you really need to consider that by you not being willing to have the uncomfortable conversation, your estate, your hard-earned money, your items that actually mean something to you, and you want to leave them to certain people, that can and only will happen if you make your wishes known and put it in writing. Otherwise, those things that are very important to you for sentimental reasons are going to wind up being sold in an estate plan. The court doesn't give a damn what kind of value it had to you or even the members of your family. You're not here to say, and members of your family might say, oh, but no, but that's an heirloom. That's this ring. The court doesn't care, because once it gets to probate, all the court wants to do is liquidate everything, divide, take their costs and then divide what's left and move on to the next probate case that they have to, deal with. And I know that nobody on our team wants that for anybody that hears this, or anybody that knows anybody that hears this and knows people, because we all know people. And we're willing to have the uncomfortable conversation with you and empower you to be able to have the uncomfortable conversation. Because as Tim said, as Leah said, we're going to be with you from the beginning and beyond. So you don't have to do this alone. And by doing it alone, as Leah said and Tim said, you're going to have issues with doing it alone, because there's a really big chance that you doing it alone with one of those kits, if you actually follow through, there's going to be some piece that you missed or some loophole that somebody's going to be able to destroy what you were trying to do. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Tim where he can tell you more.
Yeah, and like Sharon's just saying, it's not. There's no privacy in probate. You can pick up a newspaper, you can go in, and you can read all the property that someone owned if they didn't have it set up. It's just listed right there in the newspaper. And what happens with that is you're going to have people coming out of the woodwork like, oh, I can put a claim in on this. I can contest this. I can drag this out. And that just leads to more and more and more money just that you spent your life earning. That's not going to where you would want it to go. I mean, it's like if you want it to go to lawyers and the state, you can do that without the probate. That's doable. But there's better ways to set it up. And it's the other thing is the things you're not thinking about, the things that are also like more sensitive that Leah can get into some more.
Yeah, for sure. Great points. Additional problems with probate. This is something we got to talk about, our minor children. Now, there's two ways to address this. You can have the caretakers that you want to raise your children if you and your spouse or significant other should unfortunately leave here until their legal age. But we also have to talk about the Kids Protection Plan. The Kids Protection Plan can be the people in place in an emergency situation. For example, let's say your caretakers that you would have to raise your children live out of town. They live in another state, or maybe they live in another country. Maybe they're out on vacation. Maybe they're in a hospital or something. So we have to designate those emergency contacts who can take care of your children in the interim until the legal guardians are there to take the ownership of your children. So you have to remember, it's not just like, will you care for my children? These are really big decisions. Your heirs may not be able to access those assets. Prince, who was a multi-millionaire, his estate was worth at least $350 million. His family, in spite of all this, he passed away without an estate plan, no living trust, and his assets went into probate. And guess what? His family didn't have the money to bury him. Think about that, because your money, your assets are in money jail. It was George Lopez who actually paid to bury Prince. So do you have a loved one? Do you have heirs? Do you have people who could go ahead and write a check for your burials? Think about this. We got to take ownership of this. And the outcomes will be different than what your wishes were. Remember, it will be a court deciding. And there may be some attorneys there trying to intercede on your behalf. But the bottom line is it's going to come down to whoever has the biggest voice, the biggest pocketbooks, and they're going to push what they want. We've all seen it. Listen, the court system is what it is. I'm not a proponent of it. I'm just telling you what happens. The person with the dollars who can write a check with the loudest voice will probably be the person who ends up determining what happens to your assets, including your precious children. Go ahead, Sharon.
So now that we've told you what happens if you don't have an estate plan, here's how you can avoid probate, which is what we all want for you. So to avoid probate, get a trust. Your assets are owned by the trust. So you remain the owner because you are the one that set up that trust, even after you're not physically here. So you stay in control and things continue to go the way you wish. Okay. Trust makers, as I just said, that you remain in control because you can buy or sell or give your assets to anybody you wish to, as long as it is written in your living trust. Because another thing that people, there's a lot of terms that get thrown around, when we die, and there's the living trust, the living will, the this, the that, and here's what I'm going to say. one of the reasons that these living trusts work in the way they do, besides everything that we're listing here, is when people have these conversations beforehand, you're having it when you're of sound mind and all of your cognition is there. So nobody can say, you were being coerced or you didn't know what you were saying. So this is how you make, by having a trust, you're maintaining control. And because nobody can question what you were thinking at the time or what might be influencing or impacting your level of thinking. So there is that. You can have a joint trust if you're legally married. What people don't realize is if you get divorced and you get remarried, right? It's not guaranteed that if you have children or you want something to go to your ex because you have a decent relationship with your ex, that's not a foregone conclusion that that's going to happen. The person you're married to then becomes and the children that you have with that person can override your other offspring and your ex. And you listen, you don't need that to be the case. You just don't, because you're not here to express your wishes. And even if you were here to express your wish, it doesn't mean people are going to not argue with you. But the one final gift that you can give yourself and give your family at the same time, or friends if you don't have, a close immediate family, is peace of mind. Death is hard. It's hard for the person going through it in a lot of ways. And it's hard for the people that are going to be left behind. So anything we can do to make it easier on ourselves and the people that are going to be impacted by the loss of us being on this earth, don't we owe that to ourselves and them? I think so. You have to name successor trustees. So after you are no longer here, you're now going to name people that you want to take ownership of the trust so they can oversee what your wishes being carried out. You can also have more than one successor trustee. So they both have to agree on what decision is made. So that's something you have to consider, because if one person necessarily can't override the other, but if it makes you feel more comfortable, you can do that. That is an option. All right. And then the trust takes care of the distribution of the assets based on how you laid it out. So Aunt Mary can't have the chapstick if Aunt Mary wants a chapstick. If in your trust it says, no, that chapstick goes to my grandkids, cut it up and let them share it. It can't, it has to be, your trust is a legally binding document. And that's what you need to understand. And that should give you peace of mind, not give you cause for concern. So I'm going to pass it on to Tim now.
Yeah, and just one of the ways that having the living trust set up beforehand is it avoids all the things we've been talking about. And one of those big things is time. I mean, instead of looking at 3 years of your stuff sitting in probate, just losing money, just giving it to the courts and lawyers, you can have, people with money to take care of your wishes for within 2 to 3 weeks. And another thing is it's private. People aren't going to know how much money you had and how much money you're passing on. Because again, it's all public. If you leave it to probate, whoever it ends up with, people will know that they have it and how much of it they have. And that's privacy. I'd rather be able to privately pass on whatever I have. And the other thing is that it's, again, you're writing your epilogue. You're taking care of your wishes for after you're gone. I mean, we're not lawyers, but, this is before I give him the house, I want him to spend his night in the haunted house type of type of deal. This is how you take care of your wishes to make sure that uh, they get done. Again, we're not lawyers. Not sure that you can actually do that. But they're going to have a harder time contesting staying in that haunted house before they get the house if you have it in writing that that's how you want it. And for you and for everyone involved, even if they have to spend the night in the haunted house, it's going to be less stressful. And to bring back to a more serious note, I'm going to pass it on to Leah.
Oh, I say forget the seriousness. I love that. Thank you, Tim. That was a mic drop of the day. I want to kind of expand on something that has kind of been touched around a little bit. A lot of times people think that they can wait until, that it's imminent. Maybe they're terminally ill or something like that. And here's the thing. If you are in a compromised health-wise, if your health is challenged, you're going through treatments, you have a terminal diagnosis, then your options of how you're going to divide your estate are very, very limited. That means that you may lose the opportunity to distribute the assets the way that you would have if you were in good health. So really, time really is of the essence. So do you have an estate plan? Well, court versus trust, right? Probate court versus trust. It's a foregone conclusion. We don't have to go through all of this, but just understand if you really are working so hard to accumulate these assets, you're getting up early, you're staying up late, you're missing weekends with your family, you're missing birthday parties, you are sacrificing to accumulate this estate. Doesn't it make sense to invest the time and money into creating a current and properly funded trust? I understand it's not free. I understand it may be a several $1,000 investment, but how much is your assets worth? I have sometimes people who own a house that's, millions of dollars in real estate, and then they're like upset that this cost several $1,000s. I mean, this is minimal investment of your time and energy to protect what you're working so hard to accumulate. If you're working so hard while you're living, doesn't it make sense to pass it on? And yes, tell them they have to go to the haunted house. I don't know what your restrictions are. I don't know what you want them to have to do. I don't know what hoops you want them to have to jump through, but it's up to you. They say, own nothing, control everything. And if you have a current and properly funded estate plan, that's exactly what you can do. And I'll pass it on to Sharon.
So now that we've gone through all of the reasons what makes having an estate plan beneficial and what makes avoiding probate beneficial, we're going to now talk to you about the solution of how to get there. And one of the best ways to get there is the Trust Guard Plus plan with Inherent Guard. And one of the reasons for that is because it is a complete plan. There is not one aspect of your estate, what could be considered your estate, that is left out of this plan. And now I will pass it on to Tim so we can start telling you what it looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the complete package because again, Inherent Guard's been at this for 12 years with 2,000 plans each year. Again, 100 lawyers in every state, and I mean, they've been around the block with this. I mean, you get the complete trust package, the professional assistance, you get the meeting with the lawyers. Oh, I can't. You get the mobile notary so that everything's official. There's, you can say, no, I signed this, and someone can prove that I signed this. It's all the paperwork. It's everything you need. And we help you get it all set up, ready to go, make it official with the lawyers, and just you get all the benefits that we've been talking about. And there's even a few extra perks like, I forget what it's called, but it's the, you can do the video story. Leah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, leave your story. You can actually do that. That's one of my favorite parts of setting up the estate plan. And remember, our assistance comes included in the package. We're going to help you with the intake. We're going to hand carry you through the entire process. We're going to provide you with that white glove service. And then we can even on the back end have a little meeting with you and your family just to review everything so people know what their roles are. And we can review with you every year or even more frequently if that's something that's important to you. Things change. You have a birth, a death, a divorce. Things change, and we can have that conversation to see if it makes sense for you to move forward and make some updates to your trust. So there's a few ways you have to qualify for this program. I'm not going to go through all of this, but just understand that that's what we do. That's part of our service. And if you don't qualify for this package, we do have upgraded packages. I do have some sales coming up for the holiday special where you can get even a fully custom. So the Inherit Guard Trust Plan Plus is a semi-custom plan, but we've got some discounts coming through on a fully custom plan. So be on the watch out for that. So yeah, this is what we wanted to share. And it really is about taking that time, investing that time in yourself. And by the way, although Inherit Guard has only been around about 12 years, the founder and the owner, Jerry Kane, has been an estate planning attorney for 31 years. So he is highly experienced, highly knowledgeable. He has a special needs child himself, so he's very knowledgeable when it comes to setting up those special needs plans and all the advanced planning. So here's the bottom line. If this makes sense to you, if you would like to know more information, jump on a coffee chat with any one of us. Any one of us can assist you. There's no cost, no obligation, and just see what it would look like to create your own estate plan. Because it's really not much money we make. It's how much money we keep and how much money we pour into future generations. And without a current and properly structured living trust plan, that number will be greatly diminished and leaving your family with heartache. And we just don't want to do that. We really don't. It's not necessary. We can totally avoid that. And by the way, we have payment plans. We'll work with you. So there's a lot of ways that we can make this super affordable for you. So with that being said, Sharon, do you have any closing thoughts?
I think my closing thoughts are this. Do you want to pay a few $1,000s now to get a complete plan? Or do you want to have your family pay with time, stress, strife, arguing? And, my grandfather, may he rest in peace, would always say, I don't want to have to be going to my grave and worried that I'm going to be turning over in my grave because you people don't know how to solve a conflict, because it's not worth it. And so I want to leave you with this. Do you want strife and all of your assets going to probate and to attorneys and not going to your precious family or to precious organizations or wherever you want your hard-working money and everything that you've worked for to go where you want it to go? Or do you want to spend a few $1,000s up front to make sure that you stay in control of where your dynasty and your legacy is left? And with that, I'll pass it to Tim.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, it's like you're saying, it's having your dynasty and your legacy set up for a few $1,000s. I mean, you get to write your own epilogue. And we're here to help you all the way through it. And if anyone, especially if anyone has a haunted house that they've got a will to someone, do hit us up, because I want to find out how that goes. We can all learn something new.
Yeah, that's called control from the grave. You can set up the boundaries. You can set up the rules and guidelines on what your family must do and what they must not do in order to receive their inheritance. I've never heard of anyone requiring them go through in a haunted house, but you can do other things like having a buy-in and different things like that. But the bottom line is, if you don't put it in writing, if it's not a formalized, current, and properly funded living trust, it's just a wish. It's just a wish. And it probably won't happen the way that you want it to. So thank you so much, team. Did an amazing job. Thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate the comments. We love you if you're here with us live, and we adore you, Team Replay. Let us know what questions you have. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on LinkedIn. Let us know, and we would love the opportunity to be of service, because remember, your wealth today should be your dynasty tomorrow. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, everybody.
Imagine your business not just surviving, but thriving. Your wealth locked in, your opportunities exploding, and your family's future built on a legacy that never fades. I'm Leah Garcia, a financial strategist and insurance professional. I help entrepreneurs and high-growth enterprises protect, distribute, and transfer their wealth through my proven system, the Wall of Wealth. I unite your experts into one cohesive strategy, because the most expensive line on your balance sheet isn't debt or taxes, it's conflicting advice. Ready to align every dollar with your mission and turn today's success into tomorrow's divine promise. Wealth today, dynasty tomorrow.